In the previous video, we created the scene in which the player can pick up items from the scene and they will be shown inside his inventory. However, as you can see, those items are taken each inside a separate slot, although all of them are from the same type. However, in this video, we will learn how to stack those items inside the inventory and drop them back in the scene. So without wasting any more time, let's do it. Welcome to a new video by The Gamesmith. So first of all, we will get to our inventory control script. The first one will be a public float, and we'll make it an array, and we'll call this item. Then we will declare another public float. Again, one more time, we'll make it an array, but this time we'll call it number of. Then we will be using Unity Engine .ui, and we will declare a public text array, and we will call it number of text. Now after that, we will create an update function inside which we want to check for integer of name I, which is equal to 0, and that I is smaller than our slots dot length. We will be increasing I by a step of 1. For each of those, we want to set our number of text for each of our slots dot text to be showing our number of for the same slot dot toString. Now this will allow the text to show the number of items at this slot. Once we're back in Unity, we'll head to our inventory open, and we will set the item value to be 6. For the number of, again, we'll make it 6, and we will make the number of text to also be 6. Now 6 is the number of slots we have in the inventory. That's why we are using it. Now after that, we will go to our inventory and activate it. Then we will create a new UI text, increase its size. We will make the horizontal and the vertical overflow to be overflow, adjust its color, and position it inside the scene. We will make one text for each of our inventory. We will set one text to each of our inventories. Now we'll go back to our inventory open, and we'll add each text to its slot. Now once we're done, we will head to our pickup script, and here, as you can see from the last time, we have an if statement which states that if the inventory slot is taken, we will do nothing. Now we will change it. Now inside it, we will type another if statement to check if the inventory is taken by the same object or not. So we'll go if the item of this slot is equal to our item code, and we will declare a new public float which we will call item code. In this case, we want to set our inventory dot number of for this slot to increase by a value of 1, and we will also need to destroy our game object, and after that we will need to stop the code. Now we'll go to our other if statement, and if the slot was not taken by the current item, so we will go to another slot, and inside which we want to set our inventory dot item for this slot to be equal to our item code, and we want to set our inventory dot number of for this slot also to increase by a value of 1. Now you will see that whenever we pick items from the scene, they will be stacked together in one slot in the inventory with the text showing us how many items we have in that slot. But so far we have no way of returning those items back inside the scene. To solve this issue, we will create a new UI button inside of our inventory, and we will call it drop button. We will activate our inventory one more time to be able to see the buttons inside the scene. Remove the text from the button. Now we will change the source image to be our button image. Set native size and then adjust the scale. Now we will adjust the location of this button to be inside the slot. Now we will create a new script and we'll call it return to scene. Open it in Visual Studio. Once it's opened, we will declare a public game object called our returned item. We will declare also a vector2 called return position. And finally, a public transform for our player. Inside the start function, we want to set our player to be equal to GameObject.findGameObject with tag. And that tag is actually our player dot transform. We will remove the update function. Instead, we will create a public function and we will call this drop, inside which we want to set our return position dot x to be equal to our player position dot x plus 0.6, and we will also need to set our return position dot y to be equal to our player position dot y plus 0.6. After that, we want to instantiate our returned item at our return position with no rotation, so quaternion dot identity. And now we will save the script. Once we're back in Unity, we'll go to our picked item prefab and we will add the return to scene script to it. And we will set our returned item to be our pickup item prefab, and after that we will finally create a new C# script which we will call slot. Inside this script we will declare a public integer and we will call it I, and we will also create a public inventory control and we will call it inventory. Inside the start function we will set our inventory to be equal to GameObject.findGameObject with tag, and that tag shall be inventory.getComponent, and this component is our inventory control. Then we will create a new public function and we will call it drop item. Inside this function we want to check if the number of items inside the slot, so inventory dot number of for this slot, is less than or equal to 1. In this case we will need to drop the item back inside the scene and remove it from the inventory. To do so, we will use a function called forEach, and then inside it we want to set our transform child in transform, and then for this game object we will need to be destroying it, so destroy child dot game object. And at the same time you will need to go for this child dot get component to get the script attached to it, and this script will be called our return to scene, And from that script, we want to call the function called drop. But if the number of items for this slot is greater than 1, then we will need to follow the same script. However, instead of destroying the game object, we will be getting our inventory.number of for this slot to decrease by a value of 1. Now after that, we will go to our update function and we will check if there is no child object inside this slot. Transform.childCount is less than or equal to 0. In this case, we will need to get our inventory.taken for this cell to be equal to false. And after that, we will need to set our inventory.number of items inside this slot to be equal to 0. Now save the script, return back to Unity, go to our inventory, and we will be adding the script to each of our slots. Now don't forget to change the value of the I to correspond with the order of each slot. So slot 1 will take the value of 0, slot 2 will be 1, and so on. After that, we will go to each of our buttons and we will add an onClick function. We will get the corresponding slot for that button, slot.dropItem, and we will do the same for each of the remaining buttons. And you will see that now the player is able to collect items from the scene, and those items will stack in the inventory, and whenever you collect the drop button, this item will be dropped back inside the scene, and the number of items in the inventory will decrease by 1. Once you're finished, the slot will return back to be empty, and you will be able to pick those items back. So, if you learned something new today, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This is the Gamesmith, and as usual, see you in the next one.